Welcome to another episode of the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. It's been busy here, guys. It's been busy here. We are talking about the rest of July because you need to get ready. I've been warning you guys for a long time, and here we are. And I am recording live in front of my patrons who are going to get some juicy extras about the energy to come, and also a special recording for some of the political things to come into the fall. So that and more. And behind the scenes here, as for you listening to this, you're going to be hearing about the full moon in July and then the rest of the shenanigans for the month. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, and welcome to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. So before I talk about the full moon, I want to celebrate reaching 500 patrons. What the hey? What was that? How'd that happen? Welcome to each and every new patron. I'm not going to read out all 500 plus names, but I am going to give you a big shout out to the newest people later on in the podcast. But now let's talk about that full moon. It's a doozy, guys. I expect there to be everything from political violence. I think we'll see some big nationalistic booms. And yeah, that could be anything from attacks on buildings, protests that go wrong, especially if people are protesting the other things that the so-called Supreme Court has done. And I want you to remember, okay, that the Supreme Court is attacking all of the rights. You know, Roe v. Wade overturning was one set, and it impacts a whole lot more than that. In fact, they're going to go, in red states they're looking at, disturbing freedom of travel and all sorts of other fun things. But they're going absolutely whole hog at a power grab, a land grab, when you look at what they've done to our Native American brothers and sisters. They're going to be going after their children. And make no mistake, if they go after theirs, they can go after yours. This is serious times that we're living in on this planet, and the full moon in Capricorn detonates. And I am using that word deliberately. It is like it's like the domino theory, it's just like one thing after another is going to happen after this full moon. That's why we're doing a meditation. I'll be on TikTok, but also patrons will be doing a live stream here, the way we do it for the behind the scenes. So a YouTube live stream for patrons that will be recorded. And then I'll download that and make an audio as well, because you don't really need to look at me to do the meditation. You just need to listen along and breathe. And we are all going to need to practice our breathing. This full moon is big. I think we're going to see some big weather events. I think we could see a massive storm on the 13th. There could be big dust storms. We could see building collapses, bridge collapses. And you're like, Laurie, this isn't helping. And I know. I don't like historic times either, guys. I would much rather not have them, but we've got them. And so we want to practice our breathing. We want to be centered and grounded. It will be hard to stay grounded through this energy just because the full moon in Capricorn is going to be approaching Pluto. It's in a 6-degree separation. What does that actually mean in plain English? Well, it means there's a lot of very volatile energy that will build and release throughout that day. So the full moon becomes full at 11:37 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That is 2:37 p.m. Eastern. Okay? 2:37 Eastern. Pacific time is -7 UTC or -7 GMT, depending on how old you are. Some of us didn't deal in UTC back in the day. So it's a lot. It's a lot of energy. It is a historic day. And I know we're all tired of historic days, but that is something we can look towards. I will be leading a meditation on July 10th. I encourage you to join me. It'll be on TikTok. I'll get the event going. I forgot to set it today, but I'll get it. It'll be there by the time you look at it, because I'll get it set up right after this recording. It is a lot of energy, guys. You may end up having headaches. You want to be careful in public. You want to watch your driving earlier in that day, because the full moon is at 21 degrees and Mercury is at 17. So about 6 hours. So during the morning commute on the West Coast, the moon will be opposite Mercury. And that's really not, Mercury won't be completely in opposition to Pluto, but it's a lot. And Pluto at least is retrograde. If Pluto was direct, this would be a much bigger boom. But there are still booms, okay? So to my mind, there will be nationalistic violence, and yet it won't be as successful as they'd like it to be. I see a whole lot of that. I see, when I look into the end of the year, I see a lot of attempts at doing things that don't quite work out, and that's good, okay? So it may look dark, it may look dreary, but it doesn't all pan out for the people wanting to make it as bad as they're trying to make it. I hope that makes sense. It's a volatile day. If you live in urban centers, you do want to be careful. You want to be aware of your surroundings. You want to pay attention to anything that looks out of the ordinary. Not to be scared, but to be aware. Pay attention to your intuition. Okay. By the way, those of you who are sensitive, intuitive, you will be picking stuff up during that Capricorn full moon. It is truly intense that day. So you might want to make plans around it. Okay, as far as making sure that you're not overly watching the news, that you can skim headlines. That's what I do. I try not to doom scroll. I try not to constantly listen to the same narrative over and over and over again, because it's just going to fray your nervous system, and you need to have your wits about you. I really am suggesting people have emergency cash on them. And it's not because I think banks are going to fail. I do not think banks will fail. I think they've figured it out. They didn't have it figured back in the 20s and 30s, but they've got it figured out now. They're not going away. Fiat currency isn't going away until Pluto and Taurus, which is a very long time away. So like it or not, it's here to stay for our lifetimes, or at least mine. Although I don't think most of us will be here for Pluto and Taurus. Maybe some of the babies. But there's a lot to prepare for. You want to be networking. You want to support small businesses. So you want to support BIPOC businesses. You want to support women-owned businesses, small businesses, because there's some economic action that can take. This is actually an economic transit. When we look at the full moon, it's in the Cancer Capricorn axis. Both Cancer and Capricorn are financial signs. We have Mars in Taurus, and it is inching towards, and Mars moves into Taurus on the 5th of July. And it will be at 5 degrees. So it won't be anywhere near this full moon, which is good. We don't need it there just yet. But about a week later, on the 21st, which happens to be my birthday, it's a shit show. My birthday is a shit show. So all you people who go, oh no, it's my birthday. Well, deal with it. When I looked at my solar return, which is like your birthday chart, I looked at it last year around November, because I kind of peek at it throughout the year, like, oh, what's coming up? And I went, oh shit, what's going on in the world next year? So on the 21st of July, we have the moon conjunct Mars and Uranus conjunct the north node of the moon. And that will be a very historic day as well. So, yay. Although I was born on a historic day, so it kind of makes sense. So the men were coming back from the moon the day I was born. And yes, the men actually went to the moon. It was not a TV thing. I cannot stand conspiracy theories. By the way, let's talk about CERN for a minute. Let's move away from doom and disaster and talk about CERN. So CERN is a particle accelerator. They do collision of itty bitty, teeny tiny, almost invisible little parts of matter to try to determine their behavior and understand the nature of life and the origin of the universe. That's what it is. There are a lot of conspiracy theories around it, and talk of the Illuminati and all that fun stuff, and the 666. And unfortunately, because we don't educate well in especially in the West, but pretty much in general, people like to control people through ignorance. And the information isn't always easy to find. But if you're like me and you were terrified of these things as a little kid, why do you think one of the reasons I studied the occult is it scared the crap out of me when I was little. So you'd have these Time Life books and what have you. It'd be like Nostradamus predicting the end of the world and things like that. And they gave me nightmares, so I decided to study it because I don't like not knowing things. I need to know things to feel safe and secure. Sagittarius on the second house. And so CERN is not creating portals to other worlds. It's not letting in demons. We don't need to look any further than human behavior for some of the bad stuff going on. Okay. I'm not saying that demons and egregores and all that aren't real. What I'm saying is we create them, and we create them through fear. We create them through control. We create them through causing violence. We feed energy that we've created. And so that's why we're doing meditations. That's why we're calming down our nervous systems, our parasympathetic nervous systems, and reprogramming ourselves from cultural beliefs that are not necessarily useful for us growing and doing well in the world. So CERN is not opening anything. It actually fired up a couple days ago. So they're starting a new experiment today, not tomorrow. So it's actually July 5th in Switzerland right now. So, just saying. So it's not doing any of that. We like to believe that there are outside sources causing all of the problems when honestly, as human beings, we're a lot more powerful than we believe, and we cause a lot of our own problems, don't we? So we can also be the solutions. And I'm very dedicated to empowering people to be their own solution makers. Now, does that mean we can fix climate change all on our own? No. Does that mean we can fix all of the big problems on our own? No. But we can network and support one another through massive change. I've been talking about massive systemic change, whether astrologically or from just a Laurie standpoint, for many decades, trying to get people ready for this time. Especially, I didn't always mention the metaphysics behind it. I would just talk about it was due. It was due historically. It was due economically. And we didn't have good economic systems in place globally, especially when we moved to just-in-time inventory, when we had centralized supply chains. These were all very foolish and had a lot of hubris attached by people who didn't recognize that our global world is a place that changes and moves, and you can't keep things static or things fall apart. And so you need to be flexible and you need to be innovative. And that's one of the neat things about human beings, is we are flexible and innovative. So can we make all of the big stuff work in our favor? Not necessarily, but we can mitigate it, and we can rise above our greatest challenges by holding hands and working through it together. I am often reminded of the stories my great-grandmother told me. She was born in 1899. She lived through 2 world wars, a massive depression, the loss of multiple children, and she managed to keep her joy and managed to live a full and rewarding life. And she told me a lot of stories, and I'm glad I listened, because they have helped me navigate many challenges, including the current ones. So if you have old stories coming back, if you were told family stories and things to help you get through hard times, this is the time to pay attention to those. Human beings are incredibly resourceful. And I do believe, from looking out at the future, that we do manage to get through this mostly in one piece. Is it volatile? Oh, yeah, it is. So we'll just breathe through it together. So CERN isn't opening anything. 666 was actually a coded message for people at the time. You can actually look that up. I know it's hard on Google because of all the conspiracy theories that pop up first, but there's some actually really good research done by anthropologists and archaeologists explaining linguistically what it means. And I did a little TikTok video about that. And of course, everybody's coming in with their conspiracy theories, and I'm just trolling them and saying, nope, you're wrong. And I will continue saying, nope, you're wrong. A lot of those conspiracy theories were actually made by, quote unquote, the church in order to control people with fear. And if you didn't want people to think for themselves, if you didn't want people to be independent in any way, shape, or form, or if you wanted to hold on to control, what would you do? You would tell people there was a big boogeyman out to get you. Okay? And oddly enough, for all of the conspiracy theories about things such as the Illuminati, you know, the Illuminati actually was started to get rid of the formalized institution of the church because it spread ignorance. And so then in the 1960s, some guys were being jokesters. I put up an article in the Discord about that for you to read. And they were writing stories in Playboy, and it just, people went, oh, that must be it. This is why all these bad things are happening. And it's frustrating to me because I know how powerful each one of you is. And it's unfortunate that these types of things are used to frighten people and disempower them. Okay, so just know that the whole point of thinking for yourself, imagine why education has been attacked and dismantled over the last 40 years. Imagine why all of these theories about outside forces impacting things are happening. They're done to disempower you and to make you feel like you can't do anything, and that couldn't be further from the truth. You always have the power. You always have the power. We don't always have the power to change our external circumstances, but we certainly have the power over our internal circumstances. And I know that for a fact because of the many interesting things I've lived through just in my 52, almost 53 years. So, going back to the full moon to wind up this segment, it is a doozy. It is very, very explosive energy. I really expect we'll see some kind of natural event, big storms, possible. There might be a rumbler, but I don't see a ton of seismic activity in this one. I really see like a failed or a botched attempt at some nationalistic violence, but it doesn't necessarily mean it still won't hurt people. So again, if you're living in cities, you want to pay attention if you're out and about in urban centers. If you are living in suburbia, you want to be careful when you go to the mall. You want to be careful out shopping just because these people are not thinking, they're reacting, okay? And it's really easy for us to react as well because human beings do that. So it's pay attention to your intuition and your instinct. And if you're a patron, you have access to the guide about instinct and intuition and how to find them in your astrology chart. That's linked up in the Discord, okay? If you have trouble accessing Patreon from the Discord, it doesn't mean you don't have access. It means you need to log in to Patreon and then paste the link into your browser, okay? There's nothing else I can do about that. That's just the way the internet and apps work. So let's take a quick break. I'm going to talk to the patrons behind the scenes for a minute, and then we'll come back with a Patreon shout out because we've reached 500 members, which is so cool. Oh my gosh, guys, we have over 500 patrons. That's not an easy accomplishment, and obviously cannot be done without you. So, huge thank you. So I'm not gonna read out all 500 because we'd be here all day, but I am gonna read our newest ones as always in the patron shout out. We've got Preston, Kenji, Andrea, Linda, Jenny, Maggie, Kathleen, Allison, Ashley, Haley, Sai, Sarah, Alyssa, Amy, Jackie, Valeria, Meredith, Scarlett, Maria, Leticia, Lorena, Kiri, Rebecca, Nia, Kylie, I think it's Kylie, Amanda, Louise, Christine, Forgotten Cats, Rebecca, Zoe, Nana, Kat, Marissa, Christina, Carrie, Lauren, Christina, B, Rita, Kim, Tina, Kara, Mel, Sarah, Sophia, Carmen, King Demon, Bella, and Ariel. So glad to have you with us, guys. Thank you so much. And I want to give a big shout out to my mods. I want you guys to understand my mods are volunteer and they do amazing things. We've got Casey, we've got Kathy, we've got Molly, we've got Shane, we've got Jennifer. Oh my gosh, guys, and the Mango Rita. These guys work their butts off, and they are people with lives and jobs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And big thank you to Jennifer for being the Discord diva. If you guys are still waiting on your patron role in the Discord, hold tight, it's coming. We're trying to find some technological solutions so things don't have to be so hands-on manually done, because we've got a lot of people in there. By the way, the Discord has over 700 people in. Now, if you can't afford to be a patron or you don't want to be a patron, that's understandable. Come on into the Discord. We have patron-only content, and we've got the wider public content available. And I've done that because creating community is absolutely essential to making it through the Pluto and Aquarius era, and we're trying to get a jump on that. So big thank you to absolutely everyone. Obviously, I can't give readings to everybody who wants a reading. I have limited time, so I have apprentices, and they will be up reading soon. So we've got Mackenzie. She's ready to go, and now I have 3 others in training. They're just passing their review, where I read their analysis on some very interesting charts, and then they will start their observation time, where I do the natal reading and they observe. We usually do that for a couple of weeks so they can get maybe 15, 20 readings under their belt where they can watch before they start reading. I let it be up to them on their readiness. I know they're all really good. It's about building confidence and starting out successfully. I don't think we should ever kind of set people up for failure. I want to set people up for success. So that's why I have a very methodical way of working with my apprentices. They have all studied with me for over a year. Okay. They've all been deeply involved in learning and have shown a great deal of skill. And that's why I selected them to apprentice with me. I'll be looking at more over time, probably not until later in the year or early next year. So we'll get these guys running first, and then they'll be doing natal readings, and they will be absolutely worth it. Each one of them is very, very talented. So that's stuff coming up in the future. Up next, I'm going to talk about from July 21st till the 31st and what that will mean for you and for me and the world. All right, we're talking about the rest of July. From July 21st through the 31st, it gets excessively intense. On the 21st, we have the moon conjunct Mars and Uranus and the north node of the moon conjunct as well. That's probably also a pretty historic day, and so will the 23rd. So will the 23rd be exciting. There's a lot going on in all of these events. I expect it to be political. I expect it to be weather. I expect a lot of weather, and I expect failed harvests at the end of July. So this is the astrological events we have in July. The 13th, of course, we have that moon conjunct Pluto. That's something that's a concern to me. Luckily, Pluto is retrograde, so it's more like a failed attempt at some shenanigans, but it'll still be violent, okay? Venus ingresses into Cancer on the 17th, so nationalism will be up very, very high, patriotism and warring sides. No, we're not heading into a civil war. Factual, they're going to try. It's not going to work. I think, again, I kept saying that all in the early part of the year. It will look like war, but it won't be. And that's partly because the Supreme Court is doing its damnedest to just make war not happen, but the changes that would result from a war. That too will fail over time. In the immediate time, you want to have emergency cash, not because banks are going to fail, but because we may have disruption to the internet, we may have disruption to digital assets, we may have disruption to electrical grids, and I expect some pretty big storms to happen from the mid-month on. We have July 21st through the 31st July 21st through the 31st, and actually into the first week of August, Uranus is conjunct the North Node. This is historic kind of energy. This is rebellion. This is disruption. This is innovation and illumination as well. So on a personal level, you may get some of the best ideas of your freaking life, and you may figure out some ways to be independent and independently employed, or independent business owners, or find new income streams or new ways of making yourself be secure. Because remember, we're talking about Taurus energy here. July 22nd, we have the sun move into Leo. All right. And then the 28th, the new moon is in Leo. And also on the 28th, Jupiter is retrograde. And then on the 31st, we have Mars, Uranus, and the North Node conjunct. And that is very, very volatile energy. If you look at the 2022 year ahead forecast that I did back in December of 2021, this is what I wrote. Now, if you are a patron, you have free access to that. If you're not a patron, you can click the link in the description and grab your copy. All right. July holds some exceptionally volatile energy. On a collective level, we'll be looking at huge, huge economic changes. There may be a real estate crash, but I see it hitting the commercial sector first between COVID and the other possible ailments. Remember, I did predict an expansion of viruses, and yes, we do, and monkeypox is not being controlled either. Please wash your hands and wear your masks. The healthcare sectors are very fragile globally. Plus, we have a fair amount of historic weather. I think we have some other natural events on the horizon as well. And I think towards the end of the month and into August, we could see some seismic activity. Okay? Especially around July 31st. And so if you live in an area that is prone to seismic activity, please be ready. I cannot tell you the locations. I wish I could. Okay? I have family all over the place. If I could pinpoint the locations, I would, guys. It is, think about it. Geologists can't pinpoint. All right. The U.S. economy struggles as the workers continue to refuse to work for low pay and unacceptable risks. The upper echelon, or the powers that be, find themselves vulnerable to losses in all asset classes. Okay, so as much as the economic downturns might hurt us, they hurt the billionaires more. So get ready for some historic financial events. The housing market does slow down. I don't see it necessarily in a full-blown crash just yet, although it ain't happy. But we do see the commercial downfall. We could see a very large retail establishment or multiple large retail establishment filing for bankruptcy. Banks remain solvent. Crypto may find itself regulated, But I also see a crypto revolt of some kind or some kind of online incident when people collectively take action to push an economic agenda, like bigger than boycotts. Now, it could crash too. Like all asset classes could crash. But crypto might actually rise. Be very, very careful. Do not speculate this summer. Okay. It's not a time for speculative investments. Internet security, hacking, and issues with electronic funds are highlighted. That's why I'm telling you to hold on to emergency cash, whatever you can, whether it's $20, $10, a jar full of change, or you can put more than that away. Hold on to it. You may need it for gas money or transportation money. You might need it for whatever, buying food, okay? So be vigilant when it comes to this stuff. July is, and I'm going to just tell you the technical term, it's a shit show, okay? It's just a shit show. Do I want my birthday month to be a shit show? No, I do not, okay? I get no pleasure out of this. Just so you know, if the Supreme Court gets its way, and all these red states make, traveling difficult, I already warned my own parents that, hey guys, it may not be easy for me to drive to you. And I don't think it's because of violence. I think if they're going to just have a ton of checkpoints and I've got California plates, yeah, that's fun. And no, I wouldn't be mouthy. I'm not going to challenge people. I've lived in areas of the world with despotic regimes, and you just play dumb. All those people, including lawyers, which I found very remiss, I don't think they understand the severity of things. You just look at them and go, yes, sir, no, sir. And you just don't argue. You're dealing with goombas. You're dealing with people who want to be violent. And so it's just a good idea. One, don't travel alone if you have to cross state lines in any of those places. And two, be mindful. Be non-reactive. That's one of the reasons I teach all of the things that I teach, okay? So it's important to remember that. All right. Yes, there is a listeria outbreak, especially in Florida, and it was linked back to an ice cream. I'm reading comments on the YouTube. It distracts me, so I shouldn't look at it because I'm like, oh, I want to engage. My Venus in Gemini goes nuts. So guys, I want you to be cautious. I want you to be careful. We've got big events coming up this fall. I'm going to be doing a patron-only episode about what I think is going to happen with the Supreme Court in October, and what rulings I think may or may not happen through that, and what would happen if they do. We have a very, very volatile climate, October, November, and really from the full moon on the 13th of July, it just moves fast. And October, November will be here before you know it. If you are still able to vote in November, do so early and stay on top of your ballots. If you live in a red state and you have to go to the polls for any reason, do not go alone. Do plan to vote. Vote like your life depends on it, because it kind of does. All right, guys. That is what I've got for you today. And since it's my birthday month, patrons can expect what? Lots of goodies. Gonna have fun this month. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host of the Awake Space Astrology Podcast.